So, and the agenda for the today class is we are going to discuss about how you can start your career in Azure. I hope many people already are working as a .NET developer. You might be working on Azure. If you want to discuss the things more in detail, what can be the career opportunity, what is the scope of the Azure, you can discuss with Madan. Let me tell you about the Madan in brief. So Madan is a director of technology solution. He is having a vast experience, more than 24 years of experience. He is working on various technologies. Recently, he is leading the things in Azure Cloud in a top MNCs. So, Madan, over to you. So, please introduce yourself with the audience so that they having the understanding about. Then we will start the session.
Sure. Thanks, Shailendra. Hey, hello, everyone. I hope you're all able to hear me very well and also able to see me and also see the screen. Can I get the confirmation first? Are you able to hear me well? See
Yeah,
me
we
well?
can hear you well.
See me well? As
Yeah.
well as see the screen that I'm presenting?
So there is a one question is in the beginning. So what
Mhm.
are your goals with cloud computing? So
Mhm.
guys, here what are the question you having? We will keep taking in between as well. But I hope we having some pre-decided agenda. So let us finish that agenda first. And it's a about a ask me anything session. So what are the question? What are the doubts you have? You can discuss with Madan. He will be available. Don't worry. Let's start. Initiate the things, and I hope we having more than 35 people right now. And there is a one more request to everyone. If you are coming to the channel first time, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel because such career coaching show we are going to start in upcoming weekend as well. Every Friday we having such session with the new tech speaker. He is already knowing the things in a particular technology. It can be .NET, it can be Azure, it can be AWS, it can be the any other. So over to you, Madan.
Thanks, Shailendra. Hello, everyone. Very good evening. Firstly, before I introduce myself, I just wanted to, set the context. As Shailendra mentioned, we have a fixed agenda that you see on the screen, and of course, towards the end, I will dedicate fair amount of time for you to ask questions, and I will be answering them, and it's going to benefit all. And and I encourage you to ask questions, but then it would be answer towards the end. I would like to go with the flow so that you get a perspective first and then we can have a discussion. Okay. I appreciate all of you joining this. And for me, it is always fun in terms of learning and sharing knowledge. And when you talk about career, that's a very important thing for all of us. That reflects what you are, right? So for you, you have some questions. So that is something that we can discuss towards the end. But initially, I will give you some perspective, okay? As to when you talk about cloud computing, what are the things that you can consider as part of your career, okay? And when I talk about that, I would focus more on the roadmap because not much interesting to think about the history and all that, right? I will cover practical application because why Shailendra invited me is, there are a lot of theoretical concepts that you can talk about. But what I'm interested in is I'm a practitioner, right? I work with a lot of customers. I work with a lot of engineers day to day. So I'm going to take you through what happens in the real world, right? That's very important. And I'll, of course, talk about if you want to learn what are the effective methods that you can think of. And I'll talk about the opportunities, okay? So this is going to be our agenda today. Firstly, I'll introduce myself. Shailendra did give a brief introduction. So I'm currently, having about 24 years of IT industry experience. And, I started my career in 1999. And most of the time, like initially, right, when I started to develop, I quickly got into the architectural part. The reason is I started with product companies. When you work with product companies, there is something called as platform, reusable components, and all that you think inherently, so that helped me to evolve into architecture very early in my career, right? So I did some global delivery as well. But the last few years, I'm very passionately involved in cloud transformation. So for me, I'm going to share a lot of industry experience with you all today. And currently, I'm with EPAM. I worked with Siemens in Germany for about a decade there. I worked with Computer Science Corporation, Tech Mahindra, many other companies. And I'm a certified software architect from Carnegie Mellon. I've done my MS in the UK full time. I've also have an MBA from IIM Bangalore. So the reason why I did all of that is like for me to be an architect, I wanted a industry recognized certification, like something like Software Engineering Institute, right? That is one thing. MS, of course, that being a technology person, I need a technical degree. But I realize one thing: technology is not always what you directly consume. What you consume is a solution. Technology is an enabler of that, right? So I think business, I work a lot with customers. So I've also done my management degree. Holistically, when you look at it, my whole passion is about delivering value to our customers and delivering value through technology. Okay, I don't put technology first, I put customer first. So that's a quick introduction about myself. Getting on with an agenda, right? How do you want to start your career with cloud computing? um, I want to give some perspectives on that. First, let's have a quick introduction, okay? Okay, we are talking about cloud. See, guys, we are in 2023. We just finished 2022. We're talking about 2023, 24, right? When you talk about cloud, it's not a new thing. Many think cloud is a new technology or this is something cutting edge and all that. That's not the case. I think that's a wrong notion. The first service for cloud, EC2, came from Amazon Web Services in 2006. We're talking about already several years into it, the journey. We've evolved from infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. Now we're talking about AI enabled services available for us to work with. So cloud is not something that you think is a new thing, should I know or not. It is a given. I'll bring a simple analogy, right? Whichever field you are in, let's say from your school to college, when you graduated, all that, right? You started to specialize, right? But one thing that is common, that is language. Let's say English. Whether you do engineering, medicine, arts, or anything, you need to know English. It is somewhat like that. Whether you are a data scientist, whether you're an app developer, whether you are anything that you're working in IT, you need to know cloud. The question is whether you want to consume cloud or you want to specialize in cloud. But cloud is given. That is very important to keep. So I would say, given that point, right, I wouldn't spend much time on the definition of cloud, but I would definitely like to quickly touch upon. You would have heard about deployment models, you would have heard about delivery models. But in essence, what I think is very important for you to keep in mind is when we talk about cloud, why do we talk about cloud now? Why businesses talk about cloud? That is very important for you to think, right? I'll come back to the definition. Initially, when cloud came, people spoke about key benefits. One of the commonly discussed benefit is cost reduction. When I go to cloud, it's cheaper, it's optimal. It gives me some scalability. It gives me some business continuity, especially the backup and restore used to be a activity happening before. Now we are talking about redundant copies. We are talking about seamless business execution, right? These were the initial drivers. That's very important for you to keep. But then cloud evolved into a different era now. When you talk about 2023, now we are in. What is very important is businesses think about digital transformation. When you talk about that, it is all about how business want to define themselves to ensure they are successful today. They need to be digital. And post COVID, it has intensified. What was supposed to happen down the line, it's already happened. Thanks to COVID, now digital penetrated into every industry. Okay? An example, when you talk about medicine, doctors have started to use telehealth, which wasn't the case before COVID. They were very reluctant to use. Even your schooling, now it's become very digital. Tuition classes happen over Teams, Zoom, and all that. It's become like accepted way to learn remotely. So every industry is somewhat affected or heavily affected digitally today, right? So the businesses think several things for them to be successful today, whether it's virtual reality, whether it's IoT, whatever you talk about, cloud becomes an enabler for them. So it's a key component of literally every business we talk about. Okay, cloud. Then I will go back now, the definition part. What is important about cloud? Why cloud is a foundation for business? Is it provides you the on-demand service for you to run any application. End user sees only the application, right? They don't see the infrastructure. What they see is an app. They don't care where it is running. But for business, what has become very important is today agility. They want to provide things on demand. Traditionally, enterprises suffered delay because the infrastructure team to provision a particular server or a PC, whatever means of infrastructure you talk about, it took time because they were done physically. Then it evolved into virtual computing. Virtual computing became more ubiquitous in the form of cloud. The question is whether it is public cloud, private cloud, or hybrid cloud. This is what we are talking about. There is some component of on premise that some business may have, but largely you can consider cloud is pervasive. Everywhere, every business use cloud today. So it's a given. So it's not an option for you to think, whether I should know cloud. You must know cloud. Now, the rest of the slides I'm going to talk about what degree you're going to probably specialize, right? Whether you're going to consume cloud, you're going to leverage cloud, or you're going to specialize in cloud. That's what we are going to discuss. Okay. So I'm not delving deep into this. There are enough YouTube videos. It's a 1 hour session. I want to talk more on the practicalities with you all. That's why I'm not focusing much on the definition. So in digital, when you talk about, as I mentioned, the customers think digital. In that, cloud is a key enabler. It's a foundation for them to run their business, right? The key focus, if you look at, is the growth. Every business wants to grow, so they want to become multi-region easily, right? They want to evolve with customer behaviors. This is a very important point to know, which means now if they want to make a change or introduce something new, it has to happen tomorrow, today. It's not like months down the line. So that is where you see the agility part coming. Cloud combined with DevOps, DevSecOps gives that agility for them. Okay, that's what we're going to cover much of the thing. I would say one thing to you: when you think technology, you will love technology, you will apply technology if you see the value coming out of it. Starting point is start thinking customer experience. That's very important for you. Regardless of the role you do, you should think about customer. When you think customer, when you think value, you will start looking at various options available for you so that you can see, how I can go leverage these new things, these advanced things. If you don't think customer, if you think it's your role, it's set of tasks, you will do things which are more repetitive in nature, more definition driven, rather than you trying to know what all is available. Open up your eyes. Every day, new cloud services are coming. Unless until you open up your mind, try to know what's happening around you, you are going to be stagnant, or you're trying to do something more known to you. You should open your mind to know everyday new things, adapt yourself. That's very important when you think about your career option. Okay. Now, the roadmap part, right? Cloud computing, we discussed. It's not an option for you, it's a given. It's a question how much you want to specialize, right? The roadmap, cloud is set another level for us to think, that is called as ubiquitous computing. I hope you heard about it. Let me put this in a perspective, right? From a roadmap point of view, cloud is now getting extended in a way that it can available to you like a pervasive or ubiquitous computing. This means you're going to see a lot of intelligent things around you. That's what is happening. For example, if you take cloud computing, you can think cloud computing and edge computing complementing each other and working together. Don't think we are going to use PCs, laptops, tablets as our computing platforms. Now you start thinking about things, your car being intelligent, the traffic signal that you see here. Everything's around you are going to have some processor embedded in it. You would have heard about IoT, Internet of Things, right? This started it. Now it is becoming like you're going to have some edge computing as well. It means wherever you are going to do some kind of a, you know, activity, let's say you're driving a car, the activity is happening within the car. We are going to collect some information and you're going to compute there, then and there on the edge, rather than sending all the information centrally to a cloud and do there. Is everything going to happen? Maybe not. But there is going to be computing happening within the things. That's something I would like you all to take away when you talk about cloud and the roadmap. Cloud is expanding into from cloud computing to ubiquitous computing. Okay, so that something for you to note. I just like to have a quick check before I proceed. Shailendra, am I going fast? Okay, any questions? Is there anything that I need to repeat before I go to the next section?
Yeah, it's fine. You can go ahead.
Perfect. Thanks for that. Okay, now that we discussed about cloud, then the common question I keep hearing is there are various cloud providers. Which one should I choose, right? If you look at it, AWS set the stone, right? And they are the industry leader, there's no doubt. But Azure is growing very, very fast. Okay, GCP as well. But if you talk about the percentage, you see about 30 plus is AWS, Azure 20 plus, Google is catching up. I would say these are the top three cloud providers you should consider. And today I'm going to focus much on Azure Cloud. Um, I'm not saying the rest of the clouds are not important. In fact, Oracle, the form of OCI, is catching up. That's not the message I'm trying to say. If you want to play safe, you should know at least one of them. That's my point. Okay. Okay. Now look at let's now we saw introduction of cloud computing. We discussed about the roadmap where we are going in the form of ubiquitous computing, edge computing. Now, when you talk about practical application of cloud, when I want to start working on cloud, what is it? What actually happens in a day to day in an organization work? What are the things that you should know? Please make a note of the keywords that I'm going to talk about. First, first thing I would like to highlight is when you do a work, let's say in cloud, in terms of development, a new thing that you're developing, or you're going to work on an existing app, how is it actually classified? If you see is either you do a greenfield development, which means you're building an app from the scratch. This is something means completely new, right? So when you do a complete new development in the cloud, you get a lot of benefits because you can design it for the cloud, which is more cloud native. The other situation you may encounter in your work is brownfield development, which means the application code was already developed some time back. I'm not saying it's legacy or whatever. It's developed before. And now it needs to run in the cloud, whether you migrate or you modernize, whatever. In that case, it is termed as brownfield. Here, what happens, you would know you may not do everything the right way in cloud because the code was already written. You may not get an opportunity to go and adapt them significantly, right? Because the application is working, you may not get the investment to go and change it drastically unless until it is warranted. So when you're going into cloud, if you get an opportunity to work more greenfield, more new, you're going to leverage cloud more. That is one thing. So how does it happen? If the same happens also for the companies, right? The companies can be also classified, right? There are some companies when you choose to work, they called as born in the cloud. The company itself started in the cloud. They set up everything, every infrastructure, network, everything runs more cloud native, right? Set up in the cloud. But there are other enterprises or organization who have been existing for many years. They started with their on-premise setup. They could have leveraged something like ASP, application service provider kind of a model. They could now start leveraging cloud. In that case, they may have hybrid model. They still have on-premise. They still have some in cloud. So the ability for you to work on cloud would be quite different in this case, because the enterprise is probably well established for a very long time. They may not be able to do everything in cloud for various reasons. Okay, it could be for security, it could be for cost, so many reasons. So if you choose to work in a born in the cloud company, you're going to do everything in cloud. If you choose to work in an enterprise, then you may not have all the options to leverage in cloud, because you are only enabling it for cloud rather than being very native. The other thing is, when you talk about these enterprises when they want to adopt cloud, right, there are two things they look at, right? One is I want to migrate, the other is I want to innovate. So it's not like every cloud enabled enterprise is going to be only legacy. There are areas they will migrate and keep as is, which means the code was application was developed before the cloud came into picture, running on premise. You may want to migrate it to the cloud, run it in the cloud. At the same time, the newer ones, they could develop completely cloud native in cloud. The reason they migrate predominantly is to, let's say, save cost, optimize operations, agility, you see here. But whereas they focus more on innovation, in that case, they can't just migrate, they need to modernize. The drivers are more, again, you want to focus on customer experience, right? You need to bring innovation. Then in that case, you got to be more cloud native. That's what I'm going to cover. So I've discussed about greenfield development, completely new ground up, fresh you're starting, how you can be more cloud native there. Spoke about brownfield, which is existing code, you are running it on cloud now. Also the type of companies. Then I've just covered about when you adopt cloud, either you migrate or you can also innovate newly in the cloud, right? This part, if you choose innovation side, this is going to help you to try more cloud native stuff. So the same thing, if you put it practically, right, either I can move my on premise to cloud, migrate, modernize, or I can build new things, greenfield, brownfield and greenfield, you see, new in the cloud. No matter what you do you see your left and right? The left side, small business team, means agile. Release often means DevOps. This is something I want to cover. When you talk about cloud computing, you need to set yourself this way. Firstly, you need to know how to work in an agile methodology, whether it is Scrum framework, Kanban, whatever it is. Second, DevOps is a minimum thing when you talk about cloud. Again, here the specialization could be different. Whether you're going to be a DevOps engineer only building pipeline or doing some monitoring and all that, or you're going to be an application developer who understands how the pipeline works and you're able to automatically work with that ecosystem. Minimally, you should know what is DevOps, how it works, working with pipelines. It's a given when you're talking about cloud computing. Agile methodology and DevOps are foundation for you to work in cloud. Now, practically, when you look at, now we looked at the classifications and all that, where should I now focus in cloud, right? Practically, right? Since we are going to focus Azure Cloud as an example in this session, I'm going to take what Microsoft Cloud is offering, right? What are they offering? If you look at it, I'm just taking what people commonly talk about in cloud. Let's say infrastructure, application, data analytics, AI, all of that, right? These are all the specialization you can think as focus areas for you to think. See, when you think about your career, right, you first have to think about you as a person, what I am, what fascinates me, right? The circle is not intended to tell you that you should only do one thing, but you should first talk out. think about what is your background. Typically, how I see classification is some guys are very interested in infrastructure, right? They focus on provisioning infrastructure, setting up landing zones, building pipelines, monitoring the environment and all that. There are some guys who like to really code. I want to build application. See, digital and app innovation are coined together mainly because end users, they don't see infrastructure. What they see is an application. So when you think about customer experience, I like what customer wants. I want to build a workflow. I want to build intuitive, you know, user interfaces. Then you are more like an application developer, right? That's an area you can look at. There are other guys who love to work with data. I love data analytics. I love data science. And I would like to work in these areas. That's another specialization to look at. Of course, when you are an app developer, you can also be in business apps. When you're an infra guy, you can also be in security. You can augment more areas, but a typical way to start is I put some starting point. I'm going to cover this the same slide later when I talk about opportunities. But for now, just to giving an introduction, right? How you can think about your career yourself. And within infrastructure, there are different kind of roles. Okay. You can be a systems engineer focused purely on, as I told, landing zone, provisioning infrastructure. You can be an operations guy, purely focused on monitoring. You can be much more specialized in that, like SRE, site reliability engineering, right? That's all the next step within that. The first is what you want to look. This is one area for you to consider. Around it, you see some industries. I'm not going to cover now. I don't want to focus on everything on the slide. I'm just trying to pick few things, and I want to instill that in your mind for you to think about your career options. Now, just moving on from there, right? The three areas I circled, you see here: infrastructure, application, data. Application development, Azure specializations. See, Azure, Microsoft, for example, they revamped their partnership competency after 2 or 3 decades very recently. What you see is what newly revamped Azure specializations. These are not the only one, but I've highlighted a few things here. What they say is these are the specialization an organization can build as a competency, right? Application development. So if you need to build this as a competency, capability, what are the areas you need to focus? When you talk about building web applications, you see, you need to know minimally how to run them in containers. When you build applications today, you should think more cloud native. You should know how to work with containers, whether it's Docker, Runc, Rocket, whatever. We're talking about OCI, right? Open Container Initiatives. So now that, luckily at least, there is a standard there. The containers are not significantly different, but Docker is a de facto standard. You should know minimally how to work with containers. And when it comes to containers, then container orchestration comes. That's where Kubernetes become a de facto standard as well. Across cloud providers, you see Azure, AWS, GCP, everywhere Kubernetes become a standard. Even in OpenShift, the orchestration internally leverages Kubernetes. So that's another important thing for you to know. And when you talk about application development, as I mentioned before, Agile and DevOps is a foundation. You need to know the DevOps, whether it's GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps or Jenkins or what you want to do. That's all different. But minimally, you should know what is continuous planning, continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous security, continuous monitoring, continuous testing, continuous improvement. All of that is extremely important. I've just taken one example as an application developer, right? Instead of me telling you what you should do, I'm just taking an example of what Azure advocates in terms of if you think as an application developer, if you consider yourself to be a well-rounded person, you should think about these areas. Likewise, if you're an infra guy, there are some options. If you're a data guy, there are some options for you to think through. So I'm not going to cover every detail. The idea of this is to give you what are the focus areas first you should think you want to be, As I mentioned, you can always augment. You can be infra and security, you can be, app and business, whatever combination you think naturally goes with you. And when you want to build that, how to go about follow Azure specializations, right? Now that we've seen, the practical application of cloud, now we should think about, now let's say you've seen the practicalities, now you see what naturally fits your personality, infra, data, application, and all that, maybe a combination of that. If you're an architect, you may want to know a combination of that, right? Now if I want to learn some of the things, how I can do, right? Starting point, I would say, you need to have certification. I've seen it with customers. They all ask, are they certified? Whether you like it or not, you got to have a certification. That's a starting point. Those who are already certified, good. Please look at how you can advance your certification level. And there are also some specialties available. Don't do just fundamentals and stop there. It's very important you build your competency level. But then you would have seen this, I'm sure. You would have seen, some of you, if you are already working on Azure, what are the options available. I'm not going to cover each and everything here, but what you have to see here is they've given a path in terms of how you can achieve some advanced levels, right? What you need to do. And here again, you see typically administrators more infra focused, developer is more app focused, there is data engineer, there is data analyst, there is data scientist, there is also security engineer, maybe some with infra background and all that, for you to think through. So this is where you have an opportunity to focus on what naturally suits you as a personality, right, and interest, right? But then when you want to become an architect, it is important to have a combination of them, right? I'm just taking one example for an application developer. They've given a very simple path. What are the areas you're going to look at? How you can get to this? Similarly, there is another view that you can see. How you can become, you master the basics, you acquire advanced skills, you achieve the expert. Typical learning path are all, it's not like very long, few weeks to 30 days for you to complete, right? Let's say you've done all this certification. Now what next? There are hundreds of people who have certifications. How do I differentiate myself? Why certification is important? That gives a bare minimum tick for you. Let's say you buy a product, you see, right? Is it ISI? Is it certified by this? Why? We feel good. Does that stop there? Just because they are certified, you will buy? What are the other things you need to think? I think that's a value I want to pass on in this lane. First of all, as I told, if some of you are going to just look at cloud now to start, it's better you be more cloud native rather than you being cloud enabled, right? There's no point you choose that will let you work on legacy stuff. You should be smart enough to work on new things. That's the reason why I spoke about greenfield, brownfield. I spoke about companies which are more born in the cloud, which are more enterprise, maybe a little bit more legacy driven. You should be knowing where you are ending up. Don't take a job just because they are offering. You should think through all these things when you choose, because you should be smart to work in an area which lets you to learn more and do more cloud native. So in cloud native, when you talk about, you can go through the definition. I don't have much time to cover all the details. Typically you're thinking microservices, containers, right? Continuous delivery. This is very, very important. I would urge you to spend time on cloud native computing foundation, CNCF. Okay, there are some URLs. I'll share the deck. All of you can go through this deck later on. In the landscape, when you look at it, there are different focus areas. You see, it's a very crowded thing, right? When you talk about what will set you apart, when I talk about new customers or existing customers, most of them want to focus on their observability because they're very keen on fine tuning. Monitoring can be only effective if your observability is designed very well. So areas like this, or Another area is like, the standard is open telemetry. Another area is for me is chaos engineering. This is something that the now even enterprises are looking at. How do I ensure my system is able to work in a fault tolerant manner? Now even developers and SREs all have to do these kind of things. There is a notion that chaos engineering is only for SREs. Not like that. Developers need to know observability. Developers need to try chaos engineering for them to design their application a lot better, test their application a lot better. So cloud native would be a first differentiator for you in your career. You have the certification, you're cloud native. Is this good? What else? Now, what sets you apart? Are you able to think AI? Are you able to apply AI effectively? This is another thing that will set you apart, right? So in Azure, if you look at it, AI is categorized in this area. I'm not going to go deep into it, but let me talk something more relevant now, right? There are services available in Azure that you can consume and build a lot more smarter things. This is something I would say, please think how you can do things so quickly, so effectively. This will set you apart. But then what else now, if you talk about? That's where, if you are an application developer, you have a fantastic news. Have you guys thought about GitHub Copilot? I'm sure you heard about OpenAI, and you know what they've done with ChatGPT and what Microsoft has done acquiring OpenAI, partnering with them. What wonders they're trying to do now, right? ChatGPT 4 recently got released. GitHub Copilot uses the codex coming from that ChatGPT roots, right? But this is very specific to help you do the right things when it comes to programming, right? This model is run on GitHub, which is where most of our source code is available. So it gone through that and it's coming up with some fantastic options for you to effectively code and quickly code now. So you don't need to now think about syntaxes, think about is this the right way or not. What you need to think as a developer is the business logic. That is what is going to be different for different customers. What is going to be standard is the best practices. If you are developing today, I would highly urge you to try this. And I'm not saying blindly follow it. Use it. It will help you a lot. It's maturing day by day. Don't blindly follow, but use it so that you get smarter. Likewise, chat gpt, this extension is available for you to plug in your IDEs, whether it's VS Code or any IDE you use. Have it part of your IDE. We are doing a lot of trial in our organizations. Every IT service company is going to adopt this big way. There are some rumors that people are saying that it's going to lead to job loss and all that. I think we should not waste time on that. AI is never going to replace us. AI is going to be an assistant for us. If you're smart, you would use an assistant than doing that work by yourself. What companies want is a smart developer, a guy who is able to do things quickly, efficiently. Whether you want to do on your own or whether you're going to leverage GitHub Copilot or Chat GPT or anything that is available today. If you're using it, then you are considered as a smart developer in the organization. So you're going to be recognized better. So now, in terms of you in your career learning minimum certification, think cloud native and think leveraging AI. It's going to set you apart. There are a lot of YouTubes available. There are a lot of Udemy, plural site available. So you're learning all that, right? If you want to do other kind of learning, I would encourage you, please participate in hackathons, attend technology conferences, participate architecture kata, whatever. You will see a lot of like-minded people. You will do a lot more practical stuff. It gives you the boost. Participate as much as possible. That is where you're going to co-create. You cannot expect everything to available from your job. Your job, the nature of project, sometimes may not let you to try a lot of things. How to further that? You want to sit and do labs all the time? No. Try to develop something smartly, engaging with smart people. Try to register yourself for hackathons, architecture cutoff, attend conferences. I think this is going to be a very effective learning tool as well for you. Okay. Now that all that we have covered, what is cloud, how do you practically apply it, how do I learn, why do we all this or do all of this? Because we want a job, right? What opportunities are available, right? I think that's the crux of this thing, right? We are 40 minutes into it, right? Firstly, I would say, what options in terms of organizations you should think when you talk about opportunities? There is ISV, there is systems integrator, enterprise, captive. So, what is this? ISP, simply put it, product companies, systems integrators, generally the IT services companies, right? Enterprises, captive. I would suggest you should know what each of them are. What are the pros and cons of working with them? I mentioned, right? When you choose, you should reflect on your personality. Not everything is everybody's cup of tea, and others cannot judge you. You are the best judge. You should know what interests you. As I mentioned, infra, data, app, combination of them. What? Similarly, you should carefully choose the companies where I'm going to work. I don't want to cover what each means, but note down. Try to know what it is. Think your personality where and think about yourself. If you want to do certain things, what kind of companies I should choose, right? Typically, the product companies, they can only survive if they put customer first. They're more digital in nature, right? Enterprises, on the other hand, they may not be as digital as a product company, but of course, they do digital stuff. They may not be that intensive. If you're lucky enough, there may be a lot of innovation projects, or if you're unlucky, it could be more legacy driven on all that. So that may constrain you from learning or working on new things. It's very important for you to know pros and cons of working with them, right? Coming back on the trends, I told you, right? I'll come back to this slide. These are the ones typical buckets people go into: infra guy, digital guy, data guy, and all that. Again, how you can set yourself apart. Now think the other areas. Security. If you are damn good at security, you are the hot guy now, because security is an imperative. We are moving towards zero trust model. We are moving towards everything to ensure security first. As we go more and more digital, more and more security is going to be emphasized. This will set you apart from these guys because it's very niche. Similarly, business apps, modern work, all this, you cannot say I have 10 years in this. It's so new. If you do some things here, this becomes like you have less competition, right? That's another thing that you can look at. Or I would also say, right, people think, okay, DevOps, let's do DevOps. So first of all, then there is DevSecOps, DevTestSecOps, BizDevOps. Okay, let's for now we will use everything is DevOps. Before DevOps came, there was IT Ops and Cloud Ops. IT Ops was more on-premise. When you move to cloud, you run and maintain them. That was termed as Cloud Ops. It's like same VM we are running there as a VM, or a very similar style you're following in the cloud, but you're running in the cloud, right? Then DevOps came. Is that the thing? There is FinOps, there is AOps, there is no ops now happening. Within DevOps, there are some specialization like GitOps. If you are more cloud native, you are working with Kubernetes kind of complex setup, shared clusters, and all that, then you do GitOps. You would have heard about Flux, you would Argo CD, all that, right? So within each, there are so many specialization available. If I'm a data guy, you should know data ops. If you're a data scientist, you should know ML ops. If you're an app guy, you know DevOps or you're done with it. No. If you are working cloud native, you should possibly know GitOps as well. And when you're in the infra guy, you're monitoring and all that, AI ops, no ops, what is happening there? You should evolve. There is continuously things evolving around us. It's very important. Instead of saying there are too many things, logically group them and understand why this should also be known to you. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, I cannot tell what all is going to come, but what is important for you to know is to learn every day. It's not like you sit and do a course every day. Keep an eye on the trends. Participate in conferences. They will tell you what are the new things coming, right? Look at things, are they relevant to me? You should be minimally at least be able to understand what it is and then dismiss it. Okay, that's not my interest. Okay, I'm an app developer. I'm not going to, do ML ops. I know what is ML ops. That is good enough. If you do that, you're doing the right thing. Okay, I'm an app developer. I know what is FinOps. I may not actively do things, but I know what is FinOps. Okay, that's cool. That is very important for you so that you're comfortable working in cloud, right? Finally, there are a lot of trends that are coming. This is something that for you to consider. I'm not saying do this. There are cyber security, 5G coming. Low code development is become evolving big time. There are a lot of opportunities there. Hyper automation, so forth. A lot of things are happening. For you, it's very important minimally to know what is happening in the form of trends, whether if it is related to you. Let's say you're a data guy or an app guy, you should know what are the AI trends are. Keep an eye on that. If it interests you, invest your time on that. Okay. So with this, I will now sum up the opportunities part uh, before I open, for questions. When you talk about opportunities, please understand you need to know where you're going to work. Don't simply go by some fancy, roles or fancy salary. If you're really smart, you should look at the company which suits your personality, what kind of projects they do, what kind of work they do. Would it give me the longevity? Am I going to learn new things? Am I going to do things that will keep me relevant in my job? A real career is not just getting a job, guys. It's about sustenance. Careful choices will help you to have more fun at work. Okay. So I'll sum up with that on the opportunity side. We covered a lot. I will share the deck with all. Okay. Now, with some 15 minutes or less than that available, I'm open for questions. Shailendra, please help me with that questions, or can I stop sharing and look into the chat? How do you want to go about?
Yeah, please stop sharing the screen. We can now take the question.
Okay.
So the question I'm just showing you on the screen. Just look at the question and then see the things how to answer them.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. So I'm new to IT. I got certification in .NET, Sec Plus. Okay, fundamentals. I don't know what I want to specialize. How can I find my passion in cloud? Okay, first of all, if you don't know what I want to specialize, okay, that's the first starting point for you to think, guys. See, you got a certification in .NET. You are saying, right? In Net Plus, what is Net Plus, Sec Plus? Can somebody help me? What is Net Plus, Sec Plus? Is it network?
I think it can be the .NET.
Because
Okay.
it's Net Plus,
So
Sec
based
Plus.
upon the Easy 900, we can answer the things.
Okay. So, see, guys, that's what I'm saying. What I want to specialize, you should spend time. Ask yourself. Others cannot design for you. Maybe you have to try infra. I gave you pointers, right? App, infra, data, which interests you. If you like things, you're most likely to going to do well. That's what I would say.
So NetBlaze, it's about network and security.
Okay, network and security. Okay, you looks like you are already you've done certification. There must be a good reason. Network security, naturally, if you ask me, falls in the infrastructural side. So infrastructure as code, this kind of thing is something you should try if it interests you. DevOps, these are the things, or cloud operations, these are the things that you should now look at. And how can I find my passion? See, only thing passion means you find your work interesting, right? That's why you should look at what you want to specialize, so you enjoy your work. They are complementary in nature, guys. The next question. Okay, what have we been doing the 8 years? We have to think. Vamsi Krishna. So, developer or data side, right? See, this is very typical for us to write, right? It doesn't mean that when I go to data, I'm not a developer. It becomes an advantage. When I work on data, I have an application background. I can think better because I know how it's going to be consumed in an app, right? But if you're in confusion, again, it is not a forum to solve your personal things. 8 years you're in. Again, I'm saying everyone should think what you are, what you like. What you like before may change now. But what is important is you should know what you like. Others cannot tell. You know what I'm saying? This is a decision that you should make it. But when you make a decision, what are the things you can do as a developer or a data? There's a lot that people can share and help you, but not to decide what is right for you. That you should decide, guys.
I will add few more points here.
Please.
If let's say you're working in the development side from 8 years, so my suggestion is here, explore the thing around the solution architect, explore the things about the cloud developers, because we having a lot of opportunities where the people are building the cloud based application, so they need the expertise in that area. Because many people what think, they think actually we having a good salary package in the data side. It's not the case. Let's say in the development side you don't have the good salary package. If you having that understanding, that feel, because what is happening here, people start following their colleagues. One of the colleagues might be get the job in the, let's say, data side, so you might be having that understanding, I should go for that particular role. But as the Madan said, it's about what the interest you having. If you having the interest in the development side, please explore the thing around the development, because there we having a lot of opportunity. Cloud architect is a role you can look for. The next question is about from the Ashish Tomar.
Okay. So you have 12 years of experience and you're a tech lead, .NET. That's good. But now I want to move in cloud. So please suggest. Okay, it's more straightforward. See, as I mentioned in the Azure specialization, there is digital and app innovation. .NET, if you know, when you work in Azure, either the traditional .NET, the 4.x or .NET Core, or now you're in .NET 7, you're 8, you're working on the way you run in Azure. There are different ways you can run your app, right? You have web app, you have container apps, you Kubernetes, so many different options to deploy, right? I think the Azure specialization, digital and app, the minimal things like minimum DevOps, Kubernetes, and running your apps in Azure. If you're comfortable with that, that's a starting point. Is it good enough? No. As I told, when you're developing, try to use GitHub Copilot, Chat GPT extension in your IDE. Try to code smartly, and as I told, leverage a lot of AI services. So that is what customers and your organization is looking at. Are you able to do things smartly? I think this is the starting point for you. Do the Azure specialization for app and digital innovation.
I will add a few more points. If you having the already the experience in the .NET, my session is here, go for the Azure Developer Associate Certification exam. So we having the AZ204 certification that is specially designed for the developers. So you can start from that point. Later on, you can move to the Azure DevOps, exploring the containers and other things. So that is the way you can go ahead.
Sure.
There is a next question from the same person.
Okay, how much time do I Linux, Python, only fundamentals, or should I seriously study IoT? Okay, See, okay, this is a good question. Okay, I would say IoT is a complementary thing. I would not say people are 100% dedicated as an IoT specialist. As I mentioned, cloud is evolving into ubiquitous computing, pervasive computing. You're going to have a lot of things that can also run your software, not just the servers and laptops. So if that's a case, it's a more complementary thing that you do, right? So IoT, maybe there are some projects when you work, you will work on IoT. You should know what it is. It is very important. But the level at which you want to specialize in IoT, that depends on your interest. Okay. And whether you should learn Linux or Python, see again, when you look at it, I don't know what is your background. Let's say the .NET developer. Linux, I would say,
I
as an
think he's a
operating system.
fresher. He's
Okay,
planning
it's a
to start the things, so that's
uh-huh.
why he might be asking the things.
Uh-huh. He's a fresher, is it? Okay.
Mm.
Because the previous question you mentioned. So in this case, again, it's your interest. There are so many languages available. If you're starting new, people use, Rust, Golang. There are a lot more newer things available which can set you apart. So if you want a Python, you have to validate that. I cannot tell you what suits you. But if you choose, like the previous question, I'm an app developer, what I should do in Azure, it's a lot more straightforward thing for me to tell you. But then in this case, what will suit you, you should do. And IoT, you should know what it is. If it interests you, you can start specializing in it. But definitely, that is um, a important digital skill that you should have. As I mentioned, cloud is evolving into ubiquitous computing. IoT will become a lot more prominent in the years to come. So knowing IoT is a good thing for you to have in your career.
I will add few more points here. If you are a fresher, so don't think much. First, decide a path. Whether do you want to become a web developer, backend developer, front end developer, full stack developer, or cloud, or you can say the DevOps engineer. You don't need to learn so many things because I think you are thinking a lot because there are a lot of things are here. We having so many opportunities. So just decide first of all your role. Do you want to become a backend developer, front end developer, full stack developer, DevOps engineer? So one of the path you have to decide. And around that part, you have to only explore the things. So don't learn many things at once. If you will learn many things, so nobody is expecting you should be a Superman as a fresher. The company is expecting you should be good in logically. You should good how to write the code if you're looking for a role for a developer. So just around just learn the technology respective to the particular profile. Okay, there is another question from the Ashwani Sharma. Hmm.
Okay. So you have diploma in EC, recently working in IT in Seattle. Okay. How help this cloud course? Okay. So cloud, as I mentioned, if you are working, if you want to be in IT, you must know cloud. There is no doubt about that. Okay. Now, whether you want to know how to work in cloud or you want to specialize in cloud is a question, right? Since you are a network engineer, and now when you talk about cloud, the network is SDN, software defined network. Infrastructure is SDI, software defined infrastructure, right? Basically, things are moving from physical to more software driven. So, for you, the way things are going to evolve now, coming 5G into picture, it is important for you to set up yourself for the minimal thing. I would say cloud infrastructure level, cloud security level. If you do, that would help. You want to add anything
And
else?
if you're looking for any specialization certification, so Ashwani, we having a special certificate for the Azure administrator, and the exam code is AZ104. So AZ104 certification that is specially designed for the system that is specially designed for the Azure administrator. Later on, you can think about the security. There is a separate certification for the security and Azure security. So these two certification you can think about if you're already working in the networking side. These are the suggestion.
So I'm from non-tech background. Okay, I want to switch my career to cloud. Can I directly get the certification? which will benefit needs start from fundamental. See, one good thing about IT is most of the guys I've seen have not done IT as their, I would say, education. Even myself, yes, if you see me, I've done BCom. Then I did MS in IT. Okay. Most of the guys you see are have not done BSc computer science or BTech computer science, or I would say BE computer science. Most of them are non-tech guys. But now that's the interesting part. Okay. So that's an encouraging thing for you. Now, if you want to be in the IT industry, right? As I mentioned, certification is a given. So if you have certification, doesn't mean that you will get a job. There are hundreds and thousands of guys with that. Okay, you choose which path. As I mentioned, you want to be an app guy, infra guy, data guy, like that. Some example, security. What interests you? Do the relevant certification. But then, best way is if you are starting, start with the things that I told. Start cloud native. Choose a company which will give you an opportunity to work in cloud native. That would give you a lot better uh, career path than guys you know who have already started stuck in some legacy kind of stack. They are really struggling. For you, since you're starting, actually you're carrying a lot of advantage. The only point is start leveraging the things that I mentioned. Think AI, think cloud native. Then automatically you will be excited because you're working on new things. Automatically you'll get recognized because that's where they need talent now. Okay.
Let me add here few more points. The people who are especially from the non-technical background, and if they are willing to start a career in the cloud, it can be the Azure, it can be the AWS. My suggestion for those people is start with uh, the fundamental level certification. In Azure, we having the AZ 900 certification exam that will help you to understand what is the cloud computing, what is the Azure, and what are the various services we having the Azure. That is the certification that everyone can start. But again, AZ 900 is an optional certification, not the mandatory one. If you want to get the understanding of the basic level, go ahead with the AZ 900. Later on, you can go for the AZ 104. Directly, you cannot go for the AZ 400 certification exam. Before passing the AZ 400, before applying for the AZ 400, you have to either pass AZ 104, either pass AZ 204. Okay, so AZ 900, then AZ 104, then AZ 400. This is the right path to go for the DevOps engineer path in Azure. I hope it is clear now.
Okay. If you're working in .NET, what do you mean by Azure DevOps or Azure admin, man? See, if you are working in .NET, I assume that you are an application developer. Okay. In that case, you should know the key Azure services deploy your application. And Azure DevOps is a given minimum. Azure DevOps and GitHub Actions. You should know both, I would say. Azure admin, administration of Azure, typically is more for infrastructure guys. Okay. You should know what administrative things can be done, but you need not do it. Okay. From the given background, I would suggest you should do Azure DevOps because that's, as I told, you need to know Agile and DevOps for you to be a cloud developer. For DevOps, you have two options in Microsoft: Azure DevOps and GitHub Actions. I would say learn both. Azure admin is only good to know, in my opinion.
So Ganesh, few things I also want to tell you. If already working with the .NET, so the suggestion for the people who already working the .NET as a developer, they must go ahead with AZ204 certification exam that is especially designed for the developers. Later on, you can go for the Azure DevOps. Directly, you cannot go for the Azure DevOps. You have to either pass Azure Administrator Associate certification, either Azure Developer. Then only you can go for the Azure DevOps. And as a developer, the suggestion is here: do focus on the dev side more, because as a developer, I'm sure you will uh, like the way how to integrate your .NET based application with Azure. Later on, you can explore about the another thing. Let's say Azure DevOps, you can explore Azure AI, you can explore Azure Container, you can explore. But somehow you have to start with one things first.
Correct, but can I just share my screen for a moment because this looks like a very common question.
Yeah, you
Just for
can
a
share.
moment. This
Mhm.
will help everyone. Okay, 1 second, guys. So I'm going to share my screen and go to that relevant part. Okay, okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. See, whatever we talk about, right? This is the path, right? Fundamentals. Let's not talk too much about that. So Azure administrator, Azure DevOps, when you say, see, when you talk about DevOps engineer, is different from Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps is the name of a tool. DevOps engineer is not about specializing in one tool. It's about DevOps engineering, right? So the question is, if you are in .NET, like Shailendra put it, the most suitable thing for you is Azure Developer Associate. This is the starting point. When you do it, this is fine. If you want to become a DevOps engineer or a solutions architect, that's something you can take a call when you want to go to the expert level. But when you say Azure DevOps, that's different. That's the name of a tool that you should know here itself as a developer. Because when you develop your code, you need to build and deploy it, right? For that, your build pipeline, release pipeline you talk about, those is what I advised. Learn Azure DevOps as a tool, learn GitHub Actions as a tool in this scope. Okay, this means you want to become a DevOps engineer. Ideally, some of the developers would become solution architect as they evolve. Okay, where you need to also know a little bit of infra and other things. But then DevOps engineers are very focused DevOps engineering related role where there will be less of app development. Okay, it's for you to know and for others to also consider. Similarly, they have put a different track altogether: Azure fundamentals, data fundamentals, and here there are various specialization available within data. So for you to, if you're coming with a data background, first you need to ask yourself what suits this. So get to know what each one is, check which one interests you, and outsider cannot advise go do this. It may be a matter of luck, maybe that will suit you, but in most cases I would highly recommend you know what it is, choose the path that matters to you. Okay, I'll stop sharing. Next question.
Okay, Prashad, I want to give this question answer. So, Prashad, you having the experience of 14 years in .NET, and shall I start with AZ204? Of course, you can go ahead with AZ204. There is no issue. But my suggestion is here first explore the .NET Core. The reason behind it why I'm focusing the .NET Core, because until you don't know how to build the application using the latest .NET stack, you will not able to integrate the AZ204. What are the services are recommended over there? Because wherever you will go right now, the companies are using the .NET Core everywhere. So first learn the .NET Core, then go for the AZ204. This is the suggestion for you. Later on, you can think about the Angular as well. You can think about the React as well. That is the second optional things. Okay. If you want to add Madan something, you can add.
Please, yes. uh, this is what I was going to say. See, what Shailendra is talking about is 204, right? That's about Azure developer, right? See, if you see here what they're covering, first look Azure compute, Azure storage, security. How do you run optimally, right? In Azure. This is this is all about Azure. But like he rightly put it, you should first, there are two things you need to learn. I would say .NET Core is outdated. We are in .NET 8. Start with .NET 7. That's what I would say. And when you start with .NET 7, you will see already there is a big shift for you. If you're coming from a legacy 4.x version of .NET to this, it's a lot more nimble, lot more lightweight, lot more easy to develop the kind of application that you want to build today, right? Specialize in that. So when you develop in .NET 7, you need to deploy it in Azure. That's when this certification will help you as a developer how to leverage cloud. So you need to learn both. They are not going to teach anything about .NET here. For that matter, whether you're Python guy or .NET or Node.js, Java, doesn't matter. Here you are a developer. There is nothing related to .NET in this. Within .NET, you please ensure you learn the newer version, that is .NET 7 8, you should learn. And in Azure, you should do this. So that way you have a complementary thing. You have the latest knowledge of .NET stack, and you have Azure developer certification. This is how it goes. Okay. Okay, next question. Okay, you have 10 years of experience. I want to move to architecture side. Please guide. Okay. It's a good time to think about that. Architecture, if you talk about, there are different type of architects. You can be a technical architect. You can be a, enterprise architect, solution architect. It's very difficult to explain all in this call because we have very less time. We are already over time. It's a good time, I would say, to start thinking about architecture, right? For that, you need to be very good in designing. You should be able to follow design patterns, follow best practices. So it's not just about only development. You have to think holistically, right? So that's a different topic, in my opinion. It's too exhaustive to cover in this thing, but I would say you're on the right track. It's a good time to think about architecture. Yeah.
For the architecture side, what you can do here, you can start with learning the solid principles, then look for the Django for design patterns. Then you can explore about the microservices architecture, REST architectures, service-oriented architecture. These many things you should know. Later on, we can think about how we can integrate the Azure services, let's say cloud services. There we having the many cloud patterns also. This is the way you can explore the things if you're willing to move into the cloud architect side.
Mhm. Okay, we have past time. Are we going to take more questions?
I'm taking one more two question. That's fine.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. I have 9 years of experience in .NET Tech, and how much time it will take? I haven't done in .NET Azure Cloud Developer DevOps. See, I would say precisely these questions I anticipated, guys. It's not too long, guys. I tell you what, it is surprisingly, it's going to be super easy for you to learn things because, guys, just one fundamental thing I'm telling, keep in mind. When I started my career, 99, what we used to write is code, programming code. When we wanted to think reusability, we used libraries. Then libraries matured to become frameworks. What .NET framework you're using, right? ASP.NET is a framework. It comes with all the bells and whistles what you want to do to develop quickly, right? Angular is a framework. You're not going to see things from ground up. The framework has a lot of things automatically in it. So the development is a lot more simpler. And then you add GitHub Copilot, ChatGPT. My gosh, development becomes like a cakewalk. So first of all, bring the time on development. Whatever you're doing 8 hours, you can actually do less than 4 hours, thanks to Copilot, ChatGPT, and other things. All that. Then the .NET newer version, .NET 7. It's so easy to develop. Now the rest of the 4 hours, as I told, you should know DevOps minimally. Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions. Learning takes only few days, guys. Each Azure service, start looking at it. Minimally Azure Web App, Azure Function. These two are very simple, straightforward. Whatever you have been developing before, you should be able to run there. Mature towards Kubernetes. Then you are in the game. There are container apps, other options available. Look through them. Learning will not, see, if you can't learn it in 30 days, you're never going to learn it. It's not more than that, guys. But to learn, there are Azure labs available for you to set up quickly and try. There are a lot of options available. Pair with someone, join good institute, participate in hackathons. All this will motivate you to learn new things. But for you to learn, you don't need any of that. 30 days is enough to do this practically end to end and be ready to be part of the project. I'm not exaggerating. Not more than 30 days. Next question, please.
So Madan, I think we already done with the things. Okay.
Mhm.
So thank you for your wonderful session. I really appreciate your time. What are the energy you put into the session? What are the insight you have given to the people? I hope many people get the help from your wonderful session. So thank you for coming on this show. I really appreciate your time. So guys, here Madan is leaving. Okay, I'm here for more next 10 minutes. If you're having any other queries, I will take your question. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity. The reason I joined is it's so important. If you can get any advice and you're able to enjoy your work, guys, my ultimate aim is you all should enjoy your work. Career is so important for us, right? So choose the right things. For you to choose, you should know what all is available. So first of all, I appreciate all of you joining the session. It means that you are interested in learning. That in itself, you've done a fantastic job. Congratulations. Now keep it to the level until you achieve it. Don't participate, then do something else, fade away, and then again restart. Don't do that. If you're joining here, take it seriously. Do the certification. Look into the options that I told. Take them seriously. Focus. Once you get onto that right career path, then you can do all other things. But if you are serious, please ensure you keep this energy and focus until you get there. All the best. Thanks, Shailendra, for this wonderful opportunity you're giving to all these guys. Appreciate all of that. Have a nice weekend. Thank you all. Bye.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
Mithak.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
So guys, here I'm also available here for next 10 minutes. What are the queries you having? I will try to answer the things because I think many people is still having the queries. Let me keep few more question. Akila is saying here he is new to the technology and he's keep learning the thing by attending the classes, but when it is coming to the office work, she is doing the struggle. Okay. So guys, here this is the question note with Akila. I'm sure this question having the many this people. Let me tell you here the few pointers. Whenever you are exploring any technology, it's not about learning the technology because learning the technology will not help you. The reason behind it, what are the set of the samples you're exploring, you are looking at the videos available on YouTube, the videos available on various the sources, they will only help you to understand that particular concept, that particular topic. Until you will not explore it beyond that topic, it means you have to create some workflow. Because when it is coming to working on a real project, in the real project we work on the workflow. Create a workflow for login page, sign up page, create a workflow for sending the email, create the workflow for creating the shopping cart, payment gateway. Because when it is coming to working on a real project, in the real project you're going to create many workflow. So those workflow you have to practice. And I'm sure whenever you're practicing those workflow, you will face some challenges. You will face many things over there. And that really give you the confidence to work on the real project. So the missing point is he's here. You have not tried to create workflow. Make the workflow, then make the project. This is a right approach. After learning the particular technology, if you're missing that part, you always do the struggle when you're working on a real project. Because in the real project the game is completely different. I'm right. If you have any other query, I'm here. I will try to answer the things. So what is the .NET learning path for the full stack? So if you're willing to become a full stack .NET developer, so need to know C sharp, you need to know SQL Server, you need to know the .NET Core. When I'm saying the .NET Core, my intention is here .NET 6, .NET 7. Because formally we are saying the .NET Core, but official name when it is come with latest version of .NET Core, it is .NET 7 and .NET 6. So learn C sharp, SQL Server, and .NET. Then after that you have to explore the entity framework, you have to explore the web API, you have to explore one of the front end framework like Angular or React. So as a .NET developer, the people prefer the Angular. You can learn for the Angular, and make sure you know the front end fundamental as well. Let's say HTML, CSS. You should know the Bootstrap as well. So these are the things you need to explore around that. Okay, what do you mean by learning a workflow? Workflow means I'm saying about create a I will say real world example. Because whenever you are working on a real project, what is happening over there? There you are going to assign a task. What task you will get there? You will get a task to create a login page, to create a sign up page, to create a shopping cart. So that is a workflow. So in the real world, we are working on a task. So that task I'm saying here a workflow. Until you will not create such task yourself, you always do the struggle. So create a workflow, a end-to-end workflow to create the shopping cart, end-to-end workflow for login, sign up, implementing the security, uploading the file, cascading drop-down list, applying the validation on a sign up page. So such workflow will add the expertise into your knowledge, because knowledge is just like we having the dots. Until you will not connect the dots, you will not get the expertise. So expertise is all about connecting the dots like this way. So that will happen only when you will create the workflow, because workflow will help you to connect those dots together. Make sense? Another query do you have? Okay, want to prepare for AZ204. Where do I get the study material and the course? So if you're looking for the AZ204, so we having the course material available on official Microsoft the website as well, from where you can refer the things. If you're willing to join a live training program, we also offer the live training program. So there we are teaching the AZ204 end to end, where you are going to explore all the services, all the Azure services in detail, where we are building the project as well. Because until you will not build a project, including the various Azure services, that learning is incomplete. Even we will help you to prepare for the AZ204 certification exam as well. So first option is it explore the content available. Sorry, the Microsoft official website. The second option is here you can join training program with us as well. Another query do you have? So I hope we have given the question of everyone. So if you're coming to the channel first time, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, so that the information about such valuable upcoming session you will get notified. Tomorrow also we having a session, and day after tomorrow also we having the session. If you want to register for those session, I'm sharing the link with you. So register now. Those session are not live from YouTube. This session we will have on the private Zoom meeting. So you can register yourself from our upcoming session, which we having tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. So thank you everyone for joining this session and learning with us. Happy learning and bye.